The decision to purchase the Grand Oak wasn't a whimsical one for Clint Eastwood. For decades, the actor and director had cultivated a deep appreciation for spaces where authenticity thrived, places that valued respect and humility above all else. The Grand Oak had been one such haven in its earlier years, a restaurant that built its reputation not just on its fine dining, but on its commitment to treating every guest as a valued individual. For Clint, this was more than a business. It was a way to preserve an era that seemed to be slipping away. Years before he became a household name, Clint had visited the Grand Oak during one of the most challenging periods of his life. He was a struggling actor, armed with nothing but determination and a few dollars to his name. The restaurant, then owned by a man named Samuel Thompson, had welcomed him with open arms. Samuel didn't judge Clint by his worn-out clothes or his modest order. Instead, he treated him with the same warmth and respect as he would a Hollywood producer or a wealthy patron. That single act of kindness left an indelible mark on Clint's memory. So when the opportunity arose decades later to purchase the Grand Oak, Clint didn't hesitate. It wasn't just about preserving the legacy of the restaurant. It was about reinstating the values that had made it special. The glitz and glamour of modern-day Los Angeles often overshadowed these timeless principles, and Clint wanted to ensure that his restaurant would be a bastion of dignity and respect amidst a sea of pretension. With this vision in mind, Clint chose to maintain a low profile during his ownership. He refrained from making public announcements about his involvement and instead visited the restaurant as a regular patron. His intention was clear. He wanted to observe firsthand whether the spirit of the place aligned with his ideals. By blending in with the crowd, he could see how the staff treated someone who didn't exude wealth or celebrity status. For Clint, this was the ultimate test of authenticity. It was a crisp Friday evening in Los Angeles. The Grand Oak, one of the city's most prestigious restaurants, was alive with the hum of conversation, laughter, and the soft clinking of glasses. It was the epitome of modern luxury, a place where LA's elite gathered to see and be seen. Tonight was no different, with tech moguls in tailored suits, social media influencers snapping selfies, and old-money families enjoying their weekly traditions. Amidst the glittering crowd sat a man in his early 90s, dressed simply in a beige polo shirt and slacks. He occupied a corner table, nursing a glass of whiskey and quietly observing the scene. The man, of course, was Clint Eastwood, but to the untrained eye, he might have seemed like just another elderly diner. That's exactly how he wanted it. 6 months earlier, Clint had purchased the Grand Oak without fanfare. The restaurant's reputation for elegance and exclusivity was what had drawn him in, but his purpose was deeper. Clint wanted to ensure the place retained the values that had made it a beloved institution for decades: respect, dignity, and genuine hospitality. He'd instructed his staff to treat him like any other patron during his periodic visits, a quality test for the spirit of the establishment. But not everyone recognized the quiet man in the corner. Rachel, a fresh-faced waitress just weeks into the job, had always dreamed of working in a place like the Grand Oak. Growing up in a modest household, she often fantasized about the world of fine dining, where elegance and exclusivity reigned supreme. This aspiration fueled her determination to climb the hospitality ladder, but it also fostered an overzealous focus on appearances. Rachel believed that catering to the wealthy elite was the key to success, a mindset shaped by years of devouring social media posts and aspirational content about the glamorous lives of the rich and famous. To her, the Grand Oak represented the pinnacle of her ambitions, a place where she could finally prove her worth. But for all her enthusiasm, Rachel had yet to grasp the deeper values that made the Grand Oak truly special. Armed with a hospitality degree and a burgeoning Instagram following, Rachel prided herself on creating a premium experience for the restaurant's wealthy clientele. She'd spent the evening fawning over influencers and tech executives, while casting suspicious glances at the underdressed man sipping whiskey at table 14. Finally, her curiosity and judgment got the better of her. Rachel approached Clint, her heels clicking against the marble floor. She stopped at his table, her polished smile faltering ever so slightly as she took in his casual attire. "Good evening, sir," she began, her tone dripping with polite condescension. "I couldn't help but notice you've been sitting here for quite some time, with just the house whiskey. Are you waiting for someone?" Clint looked up, his expression calm. At a nearby table, Miguel, a young busboy, overheard the exchange. Having grown up watching Clint Eastwood movies with his father, Miguel recognized the man instantly. His hands tightened around the tray he was holding, torn between intervening and staying in his lane. Clint's voice broke the moment. "I'm comfortable here," he said, his tone neutral. Rachel's practiced smile faded, replaced by a flicker of annoyance. "Sir, our dining room is designed for guests enjoying the full experience. Our chef's menu is quite exclusive and pricey." She emphasized the last word, her eyes scanning his unassuming outfit. Miguel stepped forward, his voice trembling but resolute. "Miss Rachel, I think Thomas, the manager, should handle this." Rachel shot him a sharp look. "Stay out of it, Miguel. Go clear some tables." Turning back to Clint, she continued, "I'm not sure this is the right place for you. Perhaps you'd feel more at home somewhere more casual." The tension in the room was palpable. Nearby patrons were now openly watching, their conversations silenced by the unfolding drama. Clint's calm demeanor didn't waver. He set down his glass deliberately, his movements unhurried. "Tell me something," he said, his gravelly voice cutting through the silence. "What do you think this place stands for?" Rachel blinked, taken aback. "It stands for elegance, exclusivity, and luxury. It's not a diner or a movie set," she said, her frustration bubbling over. Clint leaned back in his chair, a faint smile playing on his lips. "Elegance, huh? Funny. 50 years ago, when I first came here, I was just another struggling actor. Didn't have a fancy suit or a big paycheck. But the owner treated me like I belonged. Didn't matter who I was or how much I had. That's what made this place special." Rachel's face drained of color as realization dawned. Clint continued, "6 months ago, I bought this restaurant. Not for the luxury, not for the prestige, but to keep that spirit alive." The room was silent. Miguel's eyes widened, admiration evident in his gaze, while the older couple at the next table exchanged knowing smiles, their expressions filled with a quiet satisfaction. Across the room, a group of young tech executives, momentarily distracted from their phones, looked on with newfound respect. The influencers, usually engrossed in capturing their meals, seemed captivated by the scene, their cameras momentarily forgotten. Even the staff paused in their tasks, glancing at each other with expressions that ranged from shock to awe. It was as if Clint's words had rippled through the entire dining room, leaving no one untouched by their gravity. Rachel's order pad slipped from her hand, landing on the floor with a soft thud. Clint gestured to Miguel. "This young man gets it. He understands what respect means. That's why I'm promoting him to server." Turning back to Rachel, he said, "You, on the other hand, have a choice. Walk out that door and find a job where appearances matter more than people, or stay here and learn what real hospitality is about. Your call." Rachel blinked back tears, the weight of her mistake crashing down on her. "I'd like to stay and learn," she whispered. Clint nodded, finishing his whiskey with deliberate ease. "Good choice," he said, his tone carrying the weight of his conviction. For a brief moment, Clint reflected on how every decision, no matter how small, had the potential to shape a person's character. Rachel stood rooted to the spot, absorbing the significance of his words, while Miguel smiled subtly, knowing this exchange would linger in the hearts of everyone who witnessed it. The room, though returning to its lively hum, carried a newfound sense of camaraderie and purpose, all inspired by Clint's quiet wisdom. As the tension in the room dissipated, the patrons broke into applause. It wasn't for the celebrity among them, but for the timeless lesson he'd just delivered. Respect and dignity, they realized, were the true hallmarks of class. Under Clint's ownership, the Grand Oak evolved into more than just a fine dining destination. It became a symbol of timeless values in a rapidly changing city. Rachel, now a seasoned server, often reflected on that fateful night and the lesson it brought. She had grown into one of the most empathetic and respected staff members, her story serving as a cautionary tale for new hires. Miguel, too, continued to shine, becoming a mentor for younger employees and helping to foster the warm, inclusive environment Clint had envisioned. Years later, when a local journalist wrote an article about the Grand Oak, they described it not as a luxurious restaurant, but as a place where humanity still matters. And on any given Friday night, patrons could still spot a man in a simple polo shirt, quietly sipping whiskey in the corner, ensuring that the spirit of the Grand Oak lived on. And at the Grand Oak, those values would never go out of style.